over to Suzie in a second, but as always, thank you so much to everybody that's joining us today. I tried something yesterday, and it was actually really nice. So could everybody just let us know where you're kind of dialing in from at the moment? Nice to kind of, as we know that we're trying to do what we can to create our community as much as possible.
Yeah, it's always nice, isn't it, to see where people are dialing in. I spoke to Hilary yesterday. She's in South Africa, but we've got Cirencester, London, Norwich, Islington, lots of Londons coming through.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm coming through from Surrey.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
What we like to see. The reach is going from the sofa. I hope that sofa's in the garden, Naomi.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The sofa. Thank you, Naomi. That made me
brilliant. So I'm going to pass on to Suzie now. For those who are new to this, Suzie has been running a regular feature every Wednesday at 11 a.m. and it's a mindset feature. Suzie is a mindset coach, and she helps people set up their own VA businesses as well. This has been one of our most popular sessions week by week, and the feedback has been incredible. So if it's your first time, welcome along, and to all of our usuals, welcome back. It's great to have you on board. So I'll pass over to Suzie, and there'll be some time for some questions later. And over to you, Suzie.
Thank you. Just want to say hello to Dawn Blair from Croydon. I'm in the Croydon borough, just slightly further south in Colston, so you're around the corner from me. Yeah, thank you for the excuse the voice. It's I always forget to take my inhaler and then I get croaky throat. So yeah, my name is Suzie Flynn from Suzie Flynn Coaching. For those that don't know me, I was an executive assistant, personal assistant for 22 years up to 2017. Now I'm a mindset coach and business mentor, and I help executive assistants or those that want to switch into running their own business, that are feeling unfulfilled and just really want to take their next step. I have a lot of fear around that, a lot of fear around the financial security, and I just really help them with their mindset, get them into a better feeling place and get them to create an action plan. I hold them accountable to follow their dreams and desires, really. So this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and I really wanted to do something around that because I think it's so important, and I myself have been through my own journey of depression, anxiety, etc. And I know that everyone will have their own individual journey. So I titled this as Who's Looking After You? Because so often, we spend our time as mothers or wives or whatever it may be, looking after everyone else, but sometimes we forget to come back to the present moment and actually give ourselves permission to look after ourselves. But I wanted to start with, it's kind of a bit of theme around being kind to yourself, because I think that's really, really important. And I think being kind to yourself isn't just about the physical stuff, it's about our thoughts. And I talk a lot about thoughts because, that is effectively what mindset is like the mindset that we have, the thoughts that we have. So ask yourself, how hard are you being on yourself? Are you being particularly rude to yourself? Are you being cruel? What words are you using around your achievements or what you haven't achieved? Are you saying to yourself, oh, what an idiot, I got that wrong? And let me ask you a question. Would you speak to a 5-year-old child like that? Would you speak to your own children like that? Would you call them an idiot? Well, I hope you wouldn't, and I'm sure you wouldn't. So why do we do it to ourselves? Why are we so self-critical? I mean, ultimately, it comes from the programming. As I've said before, our brain, our mind is like an operating system. And what we feed it will, translate into reality, into action. So we are programmed from our early years, from our childhood years, with certain beliefs, and, working with a coach or counselor will definitely help you unravel that stuff. But we can't go into it too much today because I'd be here for days, and I don't think that's going to be possible. So I just really encourage you to think about what you're saying to yourself. How are you being overly harsh on yourself? And instead, when you notice yourself being critical of yourself or being hard on yourself for not having achieved something or not having, reached an expectation that you set yourself, ask yourself, would I speak to a 5-year-old child like this? Or would I speak to my best friend like this? I mean, maybe you do, I hope not. But I don't know the relationship with your best friend. But really be mindful of your language, because it's really going to affect how you feel on an emotional level as well as a physical level as well. So it really is time to stop beating yourself up and just be kind to yourself. One of the things that my coach recently taught me, which I thought was really interesting, and he picked up on my language, and I'm now hearing a lot more in other people's language, is when we're saying, I have to do this, I need to do this. Because when we use that language, we're effectively, it's a form of self-bullying. We don't need to be hard on ourselves like that. At the end of the day, we get a choice. So we can change that I need to and I have to. I don't need to do this webinar. I get to because I want to. It's a choice. You know, I don't need to get up at 6:30 in the morning. I get to, okay? So just flip that language, reframe it, flip the switch, and just be more aware of the language that you're using, and know that you get to make so many choices in your life, okay? So what have I got next? Self-compassion, and practicing self-compassion and something called kindfulness. Now I just wanted to read out an extract from a book. It's by Caroline Millington. Can you see that? I don't know if it's probably back to front, but it's basically called Kindfulness. And I just want to read this out to you, and I recommend this book to you. So she says, what is kindfulness? Let's start with my definition of kindfulness. I've clearly merged two of my favourite words. Mindfulness, the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. A mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations using a therapeutic technique, i.e. mindfulness. Kindness, the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate, a kind act. So by definition, kindfulness is being conscious, aware, and accepting of one's feelings while demonstrating kindness and consideration towards oneself. The quality of being mindfully kind towards oneself and generous with self-compassion. I love that, and I really want to share that, because I think so often we are not kind to ourselves. We are not compassionate enough to ourselves. And I want to share an amazing technique with you, which you may be familiar with already. It's one by Louise Hay, where you simply look in the mirror, look directly into your eyes and say, I love you. It's a great way of practicing self-love, because if you don't love yourself, how can you love, anything else in life? Everything comes from within. Everything comes from loving yourself first. So if you're not familiar with this, I challenge you for a week, starting today, to do this once a day, any time of the day, it's up to you, and look in that mirror and look directly into your eyes and say, I love you, and say it like you mean it. Be kind and be compassionate. Practice kindfulness and really step into that feeling. And Jacqueline said that she's read this book and it works. It's a wonderful book, isn't it? I love it. And just practice it. So I encourage you, I challenge you to do it once a day, every day, and then journal. Notice what comes up, what feelings, what emotions, is the resistance? Are you taken back to a memory? Explore that. If your parents are alive, maybe you can even talk to them about a particular event or memory that comes up for you. So practice saying, I love you, in front of the mirror. Another thing I do is I have I am enough written on the mirror in lipstick. It's a great reminder, because ultimately we all don't feel enough. There's something that's happened in our lives through our programming which leads us to believe that we're not enough. Now, if guys here, which is probably just Paul, you can borrow your wife's lipstick, but just make sure it's not her favorite one, because otherwise you might get in trouble. Okay, so ask yourself next, what does self-care mean to you? And I'd love to see some comments. The book is called Kindfulness. I know it's probably backwards. Let me just type that into the chat box. It's called Kindfulness by Caroline Millington. You can Millington, there you go. Okay, you can find that on Amazon. I think it's less than £10. So ask yourself, what does self-care mean to you? And I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this, if they've got their own definition of what self-care looks like. But remember, self-care is not just physical level, but it's also emotional and psychological well-being. So I want to share some ways that you can be kind to yourself, that you can practice self-care. Now, there's many different ways you can do this, and I'll talk about some more tools and tips and stuff that you can use to be kind to yourself and to look after yourself, not just this week during Mental Health Awareness Week, but for every single day. It's about putting yourself first. So these are some of the things that I do or have done, or some of the things that I've heard about. So meditating, exercise, laughing and smiling. So I might be watching a favourite film or chatting to a friend that always makes you laugh. Doing power naps, they're really good. Having a good sleep routine. So I go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at certain times in the morning, depending on Monday, Wednesday and Friday on my Joe Wicks days. So I wake up 6:30. Other days I wake up at 7 and go for a long walk at lunch. And then at the weekends I wake up at 7:30 and cycle. So eating healthy food, you know, feed your mind, feed your body. Okay, self-praise instead of the negative. I'm an idiot, I'm not good enough. Praise yourself, okay? It's going to be unfamiliar at first. It might feel like a white lie, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So praise yourself. Have a relaxing bath if you have a bath in your home. Give yourself some slack, okay? Just give yourself some forgiveness. You know, we're not perfect. We're all just doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. We are enough, okay? Take lunch breaks. Celebrate your wins, congratulate yourself, be proud of your achievements. You know, think about what you've achieved in the last day, week, year, etc. You are still here. You're showing up in life. That's amazing. You know, take a walk, get out in the sunshine, whether it's lunch break or in the evening. Read your favorite book, listen to your favorite podcast, treat yourself to a bit of chocolate. Why not, hey? Schedule some fun activities. So schedule some fun activities. And also if you have a family, schedule some time with your family. And I think most importantly, schedule some time for yourself. Like, schedule some time for yourself. Put it in your diary, schedule it, and ask yourself, who needs to know? Do my kids need to know that, you know, on a Friday evening after a long, you know, week at work, I want to have a nice bubble bath and I want to be in there for an hour undisturbed? I know that's not always possible. But who needs to know? Does your husband need to know so that he can look after the kids and, you know, you can have that downtime? But really think about what you need and who else needs to know, and schedule it. I have a plan. I have everything scheduled in my planner. So if it's not there, it generally doesn't happen. Get it out your brain and down onto paper. Okay, so another one is setting boundaries. So if you're working from home and you're not used to doing that, it's very, very different to working in an office where you've got a team, you've got a routine, you've got meetings, etc. So set yourself boundaries. Have a morning routine. Set your workspace up the night before. Start at a certain time, but more importantly, finish at a certain time. And this is a great time to re-establish your boundaries as well with your boss. Okay, all those that have bosses. For me, it's about self-management because I'm my own boss. But yeah, it's a great time to re-establish those boundaries, to get a clear understanding of what they expect of you and how you can work with them so that both of your needs are met. Okay, so set boundaries and understand what time you start, what time you finish. Put the phone away in the evening. You've got a work phone. I used to have that, and it was like check, check, check. Put it in another room. Okay, put it out of the way. And what I'd really, really encourage you to do is take a lunch break. I know a lot of assistants, and when I was in corporate, they don't take a lunch break, and it's not healthy and it's not good for your mind, body and soul to be sitting at a desk in front of a computer for hours on end. In fact, what I'd encourage you to do is every hour, get up for 5 minutes, walk around, stretch your body, stand outside if you can to get some vitamin D, okay? And do some breathing exercises, drink some water, but literally just stretch and move and go into a different room. Okay, we don't want to be sitting in front of our computer all day, every day. It's not good for us. So have those boundaries set for yourself and recognize and accept that you are worthy of putting yourself first. And I say this with such compassion and passion because you are so worthy of putting yourself first. And I know that there will probably be some assistance. I mean, there are some assistants online today. And I know as an assistant or an ex-assistant that we are so used to, or I was so used to, putting my boss first, and that's great because that's your role, but make time in the day for yourself. It's okay to be a bit selfish, and you know, if you're a mum, let go of that mum guilt, because ultimately, if you're not looking after yourself, then how can you look after your executive? How can you do a good job? How can you be productive? How can you be the best mum? So just, you know, just be kind to yourself and let that go, let that guilt go, and know that it's okay to put yourself first. You know, you don't have to do it all the time, but you have needs, and it's important to recognize this and have them met. And maybe that's having a conversation with your boss. Maybe it's having a conversation with your partner. But as I said before, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after your family, your executive, etc. So make sure you put your seatbelt on first. Make sure you take that oxygen mask down first, so that you can then look after others, okay? Another thing which I want to talk about, and I've got something that is a useful app I'll share in the comments, is ditch the scroll. So I think now more than ever, there's a lot of negativity on social media. There's a lot of scarcity mindset, and I'm not just talking about finances, but there's a lot of fear around health, about how we're going to go back to work and be on a packed train. There's a lot of doom and gloom, okay? And when you continually scroll and scroll and scroll, and you're focusing a lot of your energy on that, it's really not going to help your mental health. So really think about where you're spending your time. And I want to share something that I do. I use a toggle timer to record my time. My coach has set me this task, and what I found was it actually keeps me really productive. It keeps me focused, and it helps me recognize when I'm spending too much time. You know, like I looked at it the other day and spent 3 hours doing admin. So that's something I need to outsource at some point. So really have a think about how you can ditch the scroll. And the next thing I want to talk about is some productivity apps that I have come across, that I've used, that I know other people use. So, sorry, moving my paper around. So there's different ones. So we've got the Insight Timer, which is great for different short meditations. And so find someone that you like, do some meditation out in a park at lunchtime. There's Calm, I think that's another meditation one. Mindfulness, it pops up with little mindful reminders to bring you back to the present moment. Headspace is another one, I think it's meditation. Shine, that's a good one. That includes like motivational quotes and self-improvement audios, which is something that you can just check in with throughout the day, or maybe listening to in your lunch break. And the last one is Breathing Zone, and this is one that I definitely want to check out. It talks about how you can focus on your breath, use different breath techniques to effectively reduce your stress, and it's actually really good for reducing anxiety. So I've popped all of those into the chat, because I want to make sure that people have got, you know, the tools that they can take away and find out what works for them. So have a look at those. Another thing that I want to talk about was like conscious questions. Like conscious questions are questions that effectively you can ask yourself each day. So one of the questions I've started asking myself is, how can I have fun today? Okay, so how can I have fun today? So for me, fun might be taking a walk across, you know, my local golf club, you know, because I can right now, and enjoying being out in nature and, you know, chatting to people randomly at a distance, socially distance. That's fun. It's enjoyable for me. You know, maybe it's walking across the golf course and listening to music, or chatting to a friend with, you know, plugged into my ears. But ask yourself different conscious questions. Like, you can ask yourself, I'm going to pop them in the chat, like, how can I be kind to myself today? What am I proud of today? You know, how can I practice self-care? But don't just ask yourself these questions, take action on them. So if you're asking yourself every day, how can I practice more self-care today? Then identify what you can do and take action on it, because otherwise there's no point asking the question. So I'm sure you can think of your own conscious questions. So ask yourself a question about how you can honour your self-care, and then what action you can take on that. I want to next talk a little bit about bad habits. So bad habits, like what bad habits that you have that aren't good for you? Do you eat, too much junk food? Do you smoke? Do you drink too much? Do you stay up too late and then feel really tired the next morning because you've been up to 2 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix, and then you wake up, tired, angry and frustrated because you're not as productive as you could be? So really have a think about your bad habits. Are you getting enough exercise? Could you be doing more exercise? So really have a think about what you can let go of and what you can implement more of. The next thing I wanted to talk about, excuse me, was sleeping patterns. So sleep is hugely important. It's our way for our body to basically rest and repair. But when we go to bed, effectively what we're doing is we are processing what's gone on throughout the day. So some of the things that I've started to do to shift is I'm still working on this, is to put the laptop down an hour before I go to bed, because you don't want to be looking at work emails or looking at your business or whatever it is that you do, or looking at Facebook or the news an hour before you go to bed, because your brain needs to process that information, okay? You don't want to feed your brain loads of new information before you go to bed. So things you can do is like lock up the house, do some stretching, stand outside for a couple of minutes and get some fresh air. And there's a great breathing technique that you can use. So I practiced it the other night and it really helped clear my mind. It was really good. It helped calm my mind and clear my mind. And I definitely felt I got to sleep a lot better. So the technique works that you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and then you let the breath out for 8 seconds, and then you repeat it 4 times. So I've popped that in the chat. So breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds and repeat it no more than 4 times. And do this once you're in bed, okay? And then my last little share is 4 questions that you can ask yourself, okay? The 4 questions are: what went well today? So just ask at the end of the day, what went well today? What didn't go so well today? What am I going to do more of tomorrow? And what am I going to do less of tomorrow? It allows your brain just to check in what worked, what didn't work, and really just change up your day, your routine to help support you. Again, I'm going to pop those in the chat. I think the last thing I say, because I want to wrap up and just allow time for questions, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I know we've got new people. I find that when I get anxious or get into a bit of a fearful state or into overthinking, one thing that works hugely well for me is a technique where, whether you're sitting in a room or outside, wherever you are, identify 5 things that you see. You can say them out loud or in your head. So for me, I can see my makeup bag, my glass of water, this piece of paper, a hairband, and a highlighter. So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things that you can taste, and then 1 thing that you can smell. I think that was the right order. But anyway, what it basically does is it shifts your focus away from what is causing you stress and anxiety, because we don't want to be in that fight and flight state of stress and anxiety, because that is when it affects our mental and emotional well-being. So 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you feel, 2 things that you smell, got it the wrong way around, and 1 thing that you taste. It helps really, really bring you back to the present moment. So that kind of concludes today's webinar. I'm going to pop in my link to my newsletter. So I do a mindset newsletter. So it goes out every week at 7 a.m. UK time. So if you'd like to subscribe to that, you can just click on the link that I've popped into the comments, and you will be added and you will get the next newsletter this coming Friday. But that's everything I wanted to share with you today. But just lastly, I just want to say, please, 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 just be kind to yourself. And remember that you're doing the best that you can with the knowledge that you have. So please be kind to yourself and just practice more self-care. So hopefully that was useful for you today. I'll hand over to Paul, and if anyone's got any questions or feedback, then I'd love to hear it.
Very, very much so. It's always helpful, Suzie. It's always great to have you on. As we know, I've just put a a note in the chat box for people to fire over some questions. We always love this bit, and you know, it's I know a lot of people get some huge benefit from all of these sessions. Great numbers today. We reached over 70 people at one point, which is fantastic. For those of you that are kind of new to everything and you've just kind of seen some random links online, we run these things every single day in a place called the Business Support Network. You can find us on Facebook by searching there, or on LinkedIn, which was the kind of original group. So Susie's here every Wednesday, basically. I liked those. I like those little kind of snippet tips. They were all really straightforward to kind of follow, which is nice, and not kind of having to overcomplicate things, Suzie.
Okay, so if people are sending me messages, I've got one that's come through privately. I think sometimes people don't realise that they've written it privately, but Jacqueline's just shared something. I just want to check with Jacqueline that I've got permission to share what she's written. It doesn't seem personal, but I want to respect her. I just don't know whether she's intended for it to be private or not. So Jacqueline, if you want to copy and paste that, or just say yes, okay to share, then I will share that. Pili said, great tips, very simple and not overcomplicated. Jacqueline said yes. Yeah, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. So Jacqueline has basically said that she's suffering as upstairs neighbour has mental health issues. So trying to stay calm in all of this, very difficult situation, is out of my control, and my sleep is governed by when he settles down for the evening. Okay, so I live in a 1930s flat, and the family above have 2 kids that run around with concrete flip-flops and often wake up early and wake me up early. Practical tool, earplugs. Not a mindset tip at all, but for me, you know, earplugs made a difference, but that's not working for Jacqueline. Okay, she's saying no. I think it's a challenging situation. I think it's one of those things where, you know, there's only so much control that you can have. There's maybe things where you can adapt your sleep pattern so that you can sleep at a time when you feel that you might have calmed down. I don't know if that will work or not, because maybe it's not a consistent thing. But for me, it feels like it's managing your own energy, managing your own stress and anxiety. So, you know, what comes up for you, Jacqueline, when, you know, this happens? Is it stress? Is it frustration? Because if it's things like that, I mean, it's, for me, I've had to learn to block out what the noise from above. I mean, it's not all the time, and they've got better. But the more I focused on it, I found the more I noticed that noise and more I noticed that disturbance. When I started to shift my thoughts to other things, that helped me start to feel calmer. And to be honest, even though the noise was there in the background, I just didn't notice it so much. So you can give that a go, but I think ultimately, you know, it is a difficult situation. So that's what I'd be able to share from a mindset perspective. Just bring yourself back to the present moment, you know, shift your focus, because as I say, if you start focusing on it, and I know it's because I did it myself, and when I was focusing on it, getting angry and frustrated and shouting up at the ceiling, I just got more angry and frustrated. It didn't help me. So when I started shifting focus, that actually helped me, and somehow it just managed to block out the noise a little bit. So I hope that helps in some way, but I appreciate that it is a challenging situation. Again, Debbie sent me a message privately, but I think I can share it. She said, I feel the work and home cycle is flowing each day as one, and then separate at home. How do you get the mindset where you're on your own time rather than work? Okay, Cheryl. Okay, great. So yeah, it's like set a routine. So for me, I have everything scheduled in my Google Calendar, so I know that I get up at certain times every day. Like, know what time you finish, know what time you start. Literally go, right, my work day starts at 9 o'clock. I take my lunch break at 1 o'clock every day. My lunch break is going to be a walk or something, but, you know, away from your work environment, and set that, you know, time that you finish. Treat it like you would be at work, but set those boundaries, okay, and stick to them. Because if you start going, oh, well, I just need to do another 5 minutes, you're not honouring your self-care. So be kind to yourself. Agree with your boss and agree with yourself the hours that you want to work. If you want to work a little bit longer because you're not doing the travelling, fine, but stick to a schedule, okay? This is something I struggled with, I have to admit, but now I'm a lot better. And I typically start work at 8:45 or 9, depending on the day. I make sure I take a lunch break, because that really helps. So really set those boundaries really clearly. So hopefully that helps. Pili said, I found it useful to set alarms at first, so to diligently do some of the tips you have recommended. Many a day, and you definitely do them more this way. Yeah, exactly, Pili. You know, and ultimately it's whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong, because like what, you know, I share what has worked for me, what I found useful, what I've learned over the years. But ultimately, like, you've got to find some things work well for you and other things don't. So find the right thing for you. Danielle said, I had to ask my neighbour if they could respect working hours and not play music before 5 p.m. whilst we were working from home. Yeah, and if you've got that good relationship with your neighbour, it's about that communication. So for example, my neighbour was sitting out yesterday playing the radio, and I was still doing a bit of work, and it was about 6:45, and I was like, shall I ask her to turn it down? It wasn't loud, but I just couldn't concentrate. But it was almost just a reminder that, well, maybe I need to stop working, you know. But yeah, it's about those communications. Leon's, I think, answering Jacqueline, control, influence, and accept. I think I get what he's saying. It's like, what can you control, what can you influence, and what can you accept? Can you just accept that is the way it is for now? It is a difficult situation. I appreciate that. Yeah, he said that you can't control, but can you influence? If you're not in the latter zone, what can you do to help with that? So hopefully, Jacqueline, that helps you a little bit more, because I'm honestly not sure how to best approach that. I think it's quite a challenging situation. It's been going on for 3 years. I mean, the other things are out of mindset tips, but, you know, speaking to the council, speaking to health care agencies, but that's not my area, and that's not my field of expertise. Can you please, the 5 senses, what do you mean when you say, oh, the 5, oh, right, okay, so it's 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you, I forgot this bit, I think it was taste, so was it 2 things you think of, 1 thing you, that was it, 2 things you smell. There you go, I popped it in the chat box for you. Yes, thank you. I just had a sort of brain freeze on that. So yes, now. So again, Jacqueline, this could be a useful one for you. It can help you bring back to the present moment. Like, there's definitely, you know, there's only so much you can do about the noise, but it's about how you react to a situation. And we can change how we react. I just realised I shared that comment privately to Jacqueline. So let me just share it to everyone. So we've got that. Okay. Perfect. Any more questions? Any feedback on today's webinar? What did you find useful? Was it useful? Always open to feedback.
It's always useful, Susie. I know that a lot of people, kind of say that privately. So yeah, feedback this end is always very, very positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jacqueline said, yeah, stress management helped yesterday. I was calm. I think it's yours, isn't it? Love your chat. Well, you know, anything I can do to help. I mean, I know what I know, but I don't know everything. Again, there's a link to my mindset newsletter. So if you want to get more regular mindset tips, I'm putting together a newsletter today actually on self-care. You know, some of it might be what we've talked about today, and some of it might be other stuff as well. And there'll be a little video attached to that newsletter, so hopefully it will help you, because it is an unusual and challenging time. Yeah, you have a great coach. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, I do. They are really good. So yeah, thank you everyone for showing up today, and I'm glad that you found it useful. So Paul, we're on a break next week, aren't we? What's
yeah, so the plan at the moment is that I was due to have a week off, but I was due to be on holiday next week, but sadly that's no longer happening. With everything that we've got going on this week, because we've got kind of so many different things for to kind of mark this awareness week, which I thought was only the right thing to do. I thought next week could be a good idea to kind of just take some time to just have a bit of a week, a bit of an R&R, and take the advice that a lot of people were saying on this. I found myself working perhaps harder than I have done in the last 3 years, to be fair. So I thought it was a good time to just kind of take a couple of days to just relax a little bit, and then come back stronger the following week. We've already got lots of people confirmed for the following week, with lots of advice and skills tips and what have you. I was speaking to someone very famous yesterday in our industry. So I'm not going to give the game away too much because I want to get it all confirmed, but it looks likely that we've got someone major coming on board week commencing 1st of June. So we'll let everybody know about that when everything is all confirmed. But as always, thanks, Suzie, and on behalf of everybody here, thanks for giving up your time. We really, really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for getting involved. You know, it's great to have this community and everyone coming together and you know, and getting on board with it. Thank you so much. It's lovely to have all your support.
And I just want to finish by sort of saying thank you, you know, for all the lovely comments, you know, thanking both myself and Paul. And as Paul said, that we're having a break next week because it takes a lot of effort behind the scenes, from prepping and researching and all of that stuff. And, you know, from my end as well as Paul's end, from preparing everything and reaching out to speakers, etc. But what I'd encourage people to do is the people that have attended, just whether it's today or the other weeks, I know someone said that they would miss the session, but please, I would encourage you to implement what I've been teaching, because I'm going to be brutally honest here and say, if you just listen and do nothing with it, your life will never change. If you want to change your life, you have to take action. Okay, so if you want to have a better life and fulfill your dreams and desires, then take action. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. If anyone wants to find out how they can work with me, drop me a DM and we can arrange a free chat to talk about that. But thank you again to everyone for showing up, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks.
Definitely. And thanks. I just want to echo that. Thank you so much, Suzie. It does take, it's a big effort putting these together. And, you know, I know the effort that you go into to kind of put the content together to give as much value as possible. So thank you for that. And thanks to everyone for your amazing comments. I might not be kind of as active next week, but the plan is to repost a lot of the webinars that we've done in the past. So there will still be stuff coming out. And thank you, Jacqueline, with your kind comments. Those who know me well know that I have crazy ideas all of the time. And I've got one crazy idea brewing for this group, which we have absolutely no plans to stop doing this, regardless of when we go back to work or when we go back to the office. In actual fact, I've got a crazy plan to take this to be the biggest it possibly can be. So
can I add something there, Paul?
Go on.
There's two things, actually, two very little things. Is when people message on the chat, can you make sure you're not doing it privately unless it's intentional?
Yeah.
Because other people can't see the comments, and I want everyone to see. And secondly, if you've enjoyed this, start sharing with your community. Let's reach more people. Let's influence and inspire more people. Paul's got a big vision, so have I. Let's use this, not just my session, but the other sessions, to inspire people, to motivate and empower them. You know, we have so much great content, so share it, you know, via a post in LinkedIn or on Facebook. Let your friends know, but share the love. Okay, share the love, and let's bring more people to this amazing community that we were all creating together. Can I hold you to that? Get some yeses in the chat box.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Victoria. Jess and Jacqueline, thank you. Sharing is caring, definitely. Let's share, let's care more.
Brilliant. Let's get to 2,000 people. Let's do it, and then we can, you know, we'll look back and see what we've all achieved together, because it's such a joint effort, which is great. So
how many have we got in the group at the moment, Paul?
Well, we're way over 1,000 now. So I'm on the trail pushing to get it to 2,000. And then I think once we get to 2,000, we can really start to, you know, to make a big dent and really start pushing on even further. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave everyone with my love, and remember to be kind to yourself, not just today, not just this week, but every day. And remember that you're doing the best you can. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thank you, Paul, and I will wish you farewell.
Good. Thanks, Suzie. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.